Journey beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary wisdom of the soul. Each episode, we uncover the timeless truths waiting inside us all. Now, here is Douglas.
Welcome to the Soul Report Live. I'm your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. Together with you, my curious audience, we explore the utter limits of consciousness, diving into the unseen realms of the soul, the mind, and the mystical forces that shape our lives. Tonight, we are honored to welcome a truly extraordinary guest. Mary Madeiras is an advanced Akashic Records practitioner, an Emmy Award-winning director whose spiritual work lies at the very heart of her creative life. For nearly 20 years, she has guided clients through the Akashic Records, offering profound healing, soul-level clarity, and divine remembrance. Her deep connection to the records has assisted her work as a screenwriter and filmmaker, where sacred insight meets storytelling in a most wonderful way. By the way, her first book, The Akashic Way, will be released on Amazon. It's part memoir, part sacred transmission, and a direct channel of divine wisdom of humanity. Well, my friends, you're in for a soul-stirring conversation tonight, one that bridges the spirit and the story, the sacred and the unseen. Welcome to the show, Mary. It's a pleasure to have you on the Soul
Thank
Report
you.
Live.
Thank you, Douglas. I always love any opportunity to bring the Akashic Records and the idea of the Akashic Records as a tool for life to people. I just love that. So thank you for having me.
Well, it's always a pleasure. You're an extremely talented woman. You have impressive credentials. You know what you're talking about. But for our audience who might not quite be aware of what you do, who is Mary and what do you do as an Akashic Records practitioner?
Who am I? Well, hard to answer that in one sentence, but the Akashic Records are it's a quantum divine essence where that contains the spiritual imprint, we could say, of every soul's journey, lifetime after lifetime. So what does that mean? It means that when we all have an Akashic record imprint, so when we're able to access our own Akashic records, we're able to communicate, I should say, with our higher self, basically, the light energies that oversee that sacred space that is each one of us. And so we're able to be reminded as the information flows of who we are and why we're here. It's just so amazing. I'm still in awe of how beautiful it all is. And I'm reminded every single time I work in the records about the very powerful presence of divine itself, and that we are that. Like, we are that. It's not out there somewhere. It is us. So I guess I could answer, like, who is Mary? I am that. And when I came to realize and remember that I am that, this just opened up for me, and everything in my life opened up. So
Well,
part of my role is not only to work with people, help people. I hear blocks of thought that are not mine, is basically what happens when I enter into the records of someone with their permission, of course. And so those blocks of thought are their higher energies speaking to them and for clarification, things that they're needing to remember, we should say, about their lives. And the other part of this is that in my records, it's what is etched or imprinted is not only my doing that, but storytelling as well, with divine at the center of everything, but not necessarily stories about divine, right? Because love is divine. It is love.
well,
And
you know,
so that's what I'm doing.
okay, didn't mean to interrupt. But you know, there's a lot of people talking about the Akashic field, the Akashic records, and there are some people just who I'm sure would love to get your book, are just finding out about this amazing library, if I can call it that, of information all about
Mhm.
themselves and the universe and how the soul works in those great dimensions in between life and in between the next life, so to speak. So, you know, as you look in people and help them, can you give us an example of when somebody comes to you and they say, "I have a problem, an issue, a phobia, or something"? How do you work with that, or is that something you do as a therapist in bringing healing?
The way that I work with it is I listen, basically, um, because the divine moves on the spoken word. So as my client is, once we open their records, as they share what it is they're seeking clarity, maybe they're feeling stuck, maybe they don't have purpose. That's a common theme. I don't know what my purpose is. The records don't necessarily answer those questions for us, but they encourage dialogue and questions that the client themselves, including me when I open my records, the client answers those questions, and in the answering of their own questions, they come to clarity. They come to understanding more about themselves and why they're here. Now that happens, but the other part of we could say the spiritual therapy part, may involve a past life that comes forward, because sometimes people will say, well, I have this repeating pattern and I don't understand why. And it can be, well, my childhood was nice. Some people say, well, it wasn't my childhood. I had a good childhood. I didn't have trauma, things like that. It could be a past life, because we know, as you know, energy doesn't die. And so the DNA of every lifetime we have is still with us, the energy of the DNA of the lifetime. So so it can be that. And what happens is, as we dialogue around what that person is seeking, I receive sometimes an image, certainly words, phrases, that just takes them right to where they need to go for themselves. And something opens up, just something opens up. And they begin to feel like, or have an understanding of like, wow, okay, so that pattern does make sense. Quite often, it will be about what Dr. Bruce Lipton refers to as, not just him, but he talks a lot about subconscious patterns. Quite often, and the records affirm that these subconscious patterns are tricky little things. The subconscious just records and it runs our behavior from the background. And that can be why we don't notice why something keeps coming to us in our lives. There's always a reason, and there's always there are clues, and and it's like a puzzle, and we get to look at the pieces of the puzzle, and people who go into their records will all of a sudden see pieces of the puzzle that they forgot. That is who they are, part of who they are, and we get to just sort of clunk those puzzle pieces right back in, and the picture of ourselves becomes more full, which I think is full remembering, right?
So
And very important too to say that our souls make these choices. We choose each lifetime. It's not dictated to us, and we have to follow something. So
yeah, I've often heard from time to time, I didn't want to be born. I didn't ask to be born. It's my mommy and daddy's fault. I don't want to be here. What do you tell people who say that?
well, the Akashic realm is well, divine, is not here to invalidate rough times, traumatic times. They call it perceived trauma, because they're events that we land in. My understanding of this is that there may be the parents did this or that, and there were these experiences, but looking at it through, as I say, the lens of the records, it's a different light that permeates the conversation of my mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle. Really rough. Some people have had really, as you know, really rough times growing up, and many have had their childhoods robbed from them by loved ones. When we look at it through the lens of the records, it becomes more about the energy of those events, not the invalidating. The record's not interested in shining a light on it and digging it back up again. And quite often, when I'm with a client and there is something, I will hear that there's something from when they were 7 or 8. I'll just get a message. And it's not like, let's talk about 7 or 8 years old, what happened, because the records are not interested in that. But what they're interested in is in the word mining, mining, mining the energy of those events. And so how do we get to mining them? Well, we have to have an understanding of, first of all, we didn't choose them. We really did, on some level, we didn't choose them. A little 5-year-old doesn't choose, to get raped. That's just not the way it works. But what I've come to understand is that the human, we choose to be human. It's why we're here. Otherwise, why would we come here, right? We'd stay where it's happier on the other side, apparently. And so we
I
choose to
hope
come
so.
in. And so we have to embrace, we've made a commitment to embrace being human. And part of that is involves those human experiences, even when we're little, right? So, because some people say, well, you tell me I chose that. It's like, not really. It's not that literal. No. But on some level, those events 100% of the time feed in and shed a light on our soul's journey. And in many cases, almost all the cases I've worked with, they become assets and tools for when we line up with why we're really here, what's the bigger overarching theme. So they make sense. And that's really beautiful. It's so freeing. When mine was having bullies in my family, and I didn't understand it growing up because I wasn't where I am now. But once I sort of went back and looked at the energy of it, I realized that I had come away with, by working in my own records, it enabled me to have a perseverance that I wouldn't have had without that environment. So, in a sense, it was a blessing. Strange thing to say about something that was rough, but it
Oh
makes
no,
sense.
I agree with you 100%, Mary. I mean, the idea that
Hmm.
your past makes you who you are today, whatever it
Hmm.
was, it's who you are today. And of course, if you
Hmm.
didn't have those issues when you were younger, you wouldn't be the woman you are today, who's been a super achiever. You're here to help people. You're exploring the Akashic records, the soul mind, if you will. I like the term about
Hmm.
soul mining and going into memories. And again, I
Hmm.
think the life of the soul is immortal. So if you don't get it right this time, well, there's always tomorrow, the next time, if you will. But
True.
as you help people go through these experiences, do you think when they come to understand why it happened, or the flavor of it, or the purpose of it, that brings, let's say, peace or relief to them so they can carry on?
Yes, absolutely. And even more than peace, they get in. I've witnessed it become a new fire under them, because when that happens, we're not just dealing with those issues. We're dealing with remembering why we're here, the divine essence of who we are, and why we've chosen to be, and the big reason why, right? Some people are here for self-love, some people are here to shift perceptions towards light, whatever. And so that when that clarity or a little bit of understanding about those events happens, then what, it's almost like an energy that floats out, it takes precedent, and it is the soul's role. And they go, oh, whoa. And it becomes a can't wait to move on in my life kind of thing. It's like a fire, that a light that uh, presents itself, and then they're shifting into can't wait to do this, can't wait to do that. I'm excited about this and that and that. And that's what I see when people write to me about their experiences after being in their own records. They write, they'll write what they're doing, or that my whole life changed the next day because I now feel more excited, right? Because I now know I'm not a victim. That's we have to get out of the concept of
Well,
victimhood. There's
I
no
was going
such
to,
thing.
yeah, I was going to say most importantly, it doesn't have to be this way forever. And so,
Hmm.
you keep running up against a brick wall, you know, disappointment after disappointment,
Yes.
bully after bully. But as soon as you're quote unquote awakened and you go like, wait a minute, there's a lesson in here. What am I not doing? That must be the solution to how to stop having this difficulty. And I'm assuming that you awaken them by this investigation into the Akashic records for them. I've heard you say you've heard a voice, you've seen things, and you only do this with their permission.
Hmm.
So does that mean that they're allowing you to look in their own at their own records, or
Oh, always.
how does that
I
work?
would. Yeah, it's a sacred space, and even with my pets, because we can open the Akashic records of animals. I
Really?
will ask. yeah, I'll ask my pet, can mommy open your Akashic records? And their body language will show nope or yes. You just have to pay attention. And I've had a pet or two, just they'll look away and I'm like, no, I'm not opening their records. But with people, yes, permission is absolutely. I've never opened anyone's records without their permission, and I don't think it's right to do that.
What's the most amazing story you ever had or come across with somebody? People think in a past life I was a king or something like that. And I've met people who said, in a past life I was the head chopper guy. Oh my God, I love my work. But, uh, I love my work now too. I'm the guy that goes and fires everybody. So, past life this, past life that. But
Right.
anyway, I mean, I'm smiling as I say this, but those really did. I really met people like that. So, can you give us a little bit? I'm sure people are waiting to maybe go on the chat with us and ask you a question, which our producer Jack Balick is standing by to take. So, anybody who's listening to the show, chat in and ask Mary a question if you like. So, Mary, just everybody wants to know the extreme. So, have you ever had like an amazing thing where somebody's met, God or something like that?
One of the reasons I'm not jumping in fast with this is because I don't remember, interesting word to use,
Sort of like a dream, right?
the,
You're
the
there and then,
contents. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm sure this is true for you, Douglas. I don't remember the details of people's readings, and I'm actually very glad I don't.
well, you must hear
Um, I
hundreds of
might
people.
as soon as
You meet,
as soon as I close their records, it's still with me a little bit, but then it just sort of drifts away. But I can use myself as an example because I've done so much work in my own records in order for me to become a practitioner. Is In one of my readings, I found out that, or I discovered, I was reminded that I had the energy of shame around me,
wow,
and I think one of the reasons that um, people resonate with me as a reader for them is because I will bring my own life, and it's in my book. My book is a lot of my own readings and things I was dealing with. And I bring that forward because I think it can be helpful because somebody else might go, oh my gosh, that's how I feel. So shame came up and it is in my book. And then what I learned was that I had a past life, um, I mean, literally as a barbarian, and that I harmed people and I scorned people. And then I had another lifetime where I was scorned, but I harmed people. And it's interesting to discover that is it's tough because you go, oh my, like you just said, oh, I was the one that chopped everyone's heads off, whatever. And it's tough to go like, how really? Because of course we're in the now thinking about it. But if we were to dig in more in a past life, we would discover why we were that, what was going on at that time. And so, the barbarian kind of information, I was just like, it's so like not like me because I had another past life as a cloistered nun. So there's nothing barbarian about that one. Although I recognize the energy of barbarian. See, I really can. Now I know why.
well, of course, you've had the experience, you see in others, what you see in yourself, as they say. And,
Yes.
for our viewers, they should be paying attention to say, you know, you shouldn't carry prejudice with you because if you're prejudiced against a certain race of people, I would think, Mary, you might agree that next lifetime they might end up in that exact area of the world and be part of that race. So,
Yes,
that
most
balance
likely.
in the cosmos. Do you find that when you're helping people that way, that they do from one extreme to the other, or is there some sort of
Um,
mediating middle ground?
well, they can discover it, um, because really, the records are an unveiling of what's already there. And so a lot of times we're walking around Third dimension's pretty challenging. I think you'd agree. So we're walking around dealing with that, and we're not even aware of these other layers that exist. So but this is interesting to maybe answer your question a bit better, is that when an information like that will come up with a client, there's never, because we're in the energy of the records, but I've never experienced them going, oh my God, I was not that because I'm a nice person. No, it's more like I see them begin to think. There's some kind of a resonance and they're thinking. And it's like, and I believe that's an energetic remembering. And of course the records present us always with love. So it's never like, what did you do? Ever. If I ever heard that, I would close the records because I would know I'm not in the records. So that's kind of what happens. It's this very subtle energetic recognition. And then it becomes, when we experience those past lives in that way, then it becomes an asset, because then we can look at the energy. They emphasize this so much, the energy of those events. It's not about who did I kill. It's about the energy of that time period and my life at that time period. What is the energy? Well, the energy of killing someone, that's a powerful energy, isn't it? So what if we look at the energy, separate the energy from the event itself? Now you got this ball of powerful energy. Now what happens if you choose that energy and you barrel it through light? Now we become like Archangel Michael with the golden sword.
Well,
So that's the invitation.
yeah, I could see, one lifetime you're a warrior with a sword, and now you're a surgeon with a scalpel. One's
Yes,
taking life
yes,
and one is giving life. So, the same thing, right? Okay,
same thing. Absolutely.
Mary's first book is called The Akashic Way, part memoir, part sacred transmission. It shares direct messages from the divine for humanity, received through Mary's own records. It's available on Amazon and it's coming out, I guess, this summer. And so everybody should look for it. Mary's website is called spiritualtherapybymary.com. That's a heck of a nice website, Mary.
Yeah,
Spiritual
it's actually,
Therapy by Mary.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's
Okay.
spirit therapy. So it's not spiritual therapy. So it's
Oh, excuse,
spirittherapybymary.com.
excuse me. I'll give myself a little cosmic correction there. I can't read my own website here.
That's
So listen,
okay.
let's take a short break, and when we come back, if Jack has some people in the waiting on the chat, we'll ask you a few questions. We'll be right back after a short break.
Oh,
And we're back. And Jack has joined us. We were talking about Mary's first book, The Akashic Way, and it's www.spirittherapybymary.com. I believe I have it right this time. And the email is adivinerealm@gmail.com. So, Jack, do we have some inquiries in the chat?
no, not at this time. I'm watching. Ask folks, if you do have a question, drop it in the chat, and we'll get it over to Douglas and Mary.
So, okay, thanks, Jack. Jack is standing by. Please give us your inquiries in the chat. You're welcome to, my friends, wherever you are in the world. Jack's waiting to take a question in the chat for Mary. So, Mary, as how long you've been doing this? I mean, you had an impressive career, with all those credentials you have as, in the media in New York, and I just can't pop in my mind now because they're so extensive. But as you went from the commercial world of media and acting and broadcasting, and into this, was this a calling, you think, or how did this happen for you? How did you get where you are today?
Well, I think that I really should rewind to even before I grew up, which is when I would feel my family was Catholic, and so I grew up in that environment. And I do remember being very little, being in church, and knowing, feeling some presence loving me. And I didn't really talk much about it. I also had nuns that taught me, and they were I have a huge thank you to them in my book because I had a rough family life. Yet this schooling and the nuns, they were gentle, beautiful, loving, divine women, beings, teachers. And I owe so much to that environment because inside me, I already knew that that was what was real, not what I went home to. So I just knew it. I don't know. So it began like that, right? Then I grew up and became fully human, did all the human things we've done, bumped into walls, fell down, got up, things like that. And so I was always attracted to storytelling. And so I wound up just, it was just sort of, life goes on, you're young. Oh, there's the job. I think, and I always had a feeling when I was at a fork, I think I'll do that. And I just would do it. I wouldn't think twice about it. That's really, I tumbled into, on paper, entertainment. And it was always fun because I love working with people. And I was always bringing my ability without consciously knowing it to mirror the beauty of others to them, which is why my favorite thing in when I worked in television was to work with actors. And most actors, if you ask them today, would say, "Oh my gosh, I love working with Mary." Well, I was always meeting them where they were. Not every director I worked with would do that, but I knew. So I already knew that. So I came in to this lifetime already knowing the power of divine, but I didn't know I knew. And so now I'm bopping around in entertainment, working for the networks, and I noticed that the machinery of the networks was very unloving. Not the people who worked there; they were loving. The machinery of it, the corporate part of it,
Hmm.
very unloving. I was at ABC when Michael Eisner fired thousands and thousands of people who were loyal to ABC, who had children and families and mortgages, and he just let them go. And so I was there for that, and so unkindness, and that's putting it lightly for that what happened. Unkindness for me is it's just a switch goes off, and I know that's past life stuff because I don't understand people hating each other. I don't understand division, and I don't understand how someone can just blindly take power over someone's life and dictate what happens to them. So I was in that, and that wasn't me. Yet storytelling is me. I always loved working with scripts, and I love working with the actors. And I majored in music in college. I always loved expressing or the power. I like to be around the power of the arts to express multi dimensions, divine itself. So I think that it was that, and the more I worked in that environment in New York and Los Angeles, the more it was like I kept feeling, not consciously, not so consciously, something was off. And what's interesting too, this is a good message for anyone in the records or finding out about the records, is that when we get off our soul's chosen journey in some way, when we drift a little bit off of why we're here, the signs just show up. They show up. Jobs get more difficult, or creepy bosses come in. There are things the universe shows us. Hey, it's time now to step into this. And so that was, I didn't even recognize it, Douglas. I didn't recognize it until a book almost fell off a shelf on my head about the Akashic records. And I had a psychic reading with someone, and they saw the keeper of my Akashic realm over my shoulder. And the psychic didn't even know what the Akashic records were. It was like there were these like little kind of like, okay, she's not listening, bang, bang, and that's what happens. So when we have things that don't go right for us, or we feel they don't, it's not that we're getting beaten up or we're becoming a victim. Most likely, the universe is guiding us to something that is more who we are. And that was my experience. Once I started working in the records, it was so easy that I couldn't believe it.
You
It was
know,
just easy.
you're an Emmy award-winning director. So I got to ask you, when you were directing people, could you kind of sense how to direct them, where they should be, or what they should do? Did you have that like intuitive sense? I kind of
Yes,
you did. So
great question. No one's ever asked me that question. That's why I love chatting with you because you're seeing. Um,
I'm
yes,
not,
when I would
I
read
want you to know
scripts,
my mind. Sorry. So,
when I would read the script, when the script of the show I would be directing, because there were different directors with attached to different episodes. But when I would read the script, I would know which actors because I knew them very well, and I'd know which actors because of the characters that were in the script. And I would the blocking. It's interesting we call it blocking, but the staging of of the of that show or those scenes came so naturally to me because I knew the actors. I knew their work and I knew who they were. And so I knew that, if I had a choice to make, oh, in here, she's going to go and make a cup of coffee in the scene. And it could be an actor that would rather engage like this with the other person in the scene and not go do business. I would know that. I just would know it. And I think that's probably why actors liked working with me because there was an organic sense of who they were and the written words
and
and bringing
also,
them together.
I think you knew what you wanted. You knew what
Yes.
how to direct them. You knew what you wanted, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't get a flip-flop director. I got somebody go there, make the coffee, come back, put the coffee on the table." You know, I kind of think that comes from your awareness when you were a child. You always were on guard for the being bullied or the difficulty I had in life. I want everybody to
Yep.
know this very attractive, sweet young lady here had some very brutal things happen to her. And, a lot of us would kind of like give up, run away and join the circus. Did you ever think about doing that? I'm sure once or twice anyway. But that,
No, but it was very, it was sad because, excuse me, things weren't necessarily happening to me, at me. They were happening around me to those who I loved in my family. So sometimes I wonder, like, what people's opinions are about this, which is more painful, to just be smacked by the father or mother, or to have to watch the father doing things to a sibling, or, it was like that. It was like the bullying was allowed, and I mean, my brother did bully me pretty badly, so I have to say it did come down to me, and I was trapped, and
mm,
there was just immense sadness. I just remember sadness, and I remember thinking, I don't know why I'm here.
exactly. And so you
Hmm.
endured this torture, and as a wiser young person, I'm sure, like those questions you're asking, why is this going on? What's this happening to me? Later on, the answer is you turned into this person who's able to help people because you've been there.
Hmm.
You know what it's like. But I want everybody to know that you've suffered immensely, and you kind of like keep it on your shoulder. I think Jack might have a somebody in the chat who wants to ask a question now.
Yeah, yes, we do. Christine from Asheville, North Carolina, has a question. She's wondering, when you open the Akashic Records, can you ask anything? And who are you speaking to, and where are the answers coming from?
Hmm. Yeah. So when I opened the Akashic Records, what was the first part? Who am I speaking to? Oh,
Yeah,
can I ask anything?
can you ask
Yes.
anything?
Yeah, because there are no rules. The Akashic realm, divine is divine. It's the essence, the all it isness of everything. So and we also know there's no such thing as time. So everything exists in the now all the time. Even our past lives are in the now. And so we can ask any question. When I
Uh,
open the records, who I'm accessing are the light energies known as, in what I've studied, the masters, teachers, and loved ones of that person's Akashic imprint, we can call it. And they are, well, there's the lords of the records, and it's a whole, light energies. They're not spirits or ghosts. They're light energies that maintain the sanctity of that person's chosen journey and all journeys that they've taken. And so that entourage, I call it an entourage, they've all not been physical except the loved ones. So the loved ones are those who we've experienced love with in this lifetime that are now on the other side. And unlike it's a little different than a psychic reading where you can really have a one-on-one chat with someone on the other side. This is more, the loved one is an energy that is holding the sanctity of your own journey and that session as well. Now, I will sometimes feel a presence. I will feel a male presence, or someone will talk about their mother or father on the other side, and I absolutely know the father is here, and there may be something that's said. There's a chapter in my book where my mother, who I was very close to, and my brother, who was my favorite, we were just the same heart. They're both on the other side. They came right through. And I've had Mary Magdalene come right through me when I was writing the screenplay about her life. And I knew it because something came through me. And I had my records open when I was writing, I should say. So there Mary Magdalene was holding that space. Why? Who she is to me. It maybe I lived with her. Maybe I'm an aspect of her. I'm coming to discover that more and more. So we can ask any questions, and that's who I access. And I think, Jack, there was a third part to that question.
Well, she was also wondering if the records can tell her what her life purpose is.
Oh, so what the records will do, and that's a great question. What the records will do is, when we're in somebody's Akashic, we have the records open, is they'll encourage, as I said earlier, they'll encourage questions. So if the person goes, I am so confused, nothing's working out for me, and I don't know what my life's purpose is. I get that a lot. The records are not going to, it's not a divining rod, excuse the pun, it's not going to come down and they're not going to come in and say, well, here it is. Because there's no intervention of that sort. Divine doesn't do that. We are in charge of our own lives. It's designed that way. And so there'll be questions. And as I said earlier, also the divine moves on the spoken word. So as questions are come through for the client, for the person, as they answer them, it opens up. Clarity starts to rise up. It just happens. And I like to say it's the way of divine. It's not me. I mean, I'm participating because I know it to be true. I'm certain that this is what is happening, and I'm certain about the presence of divine, whatever we want to call it, God, divine, source, creator, universe. So it is through the dialoguing that the person themselves go, oh, and it starts to open up the remembering of why they're here. And really, you know what? What's the key? Things that bring us joy. We know what makes us happy. We know quite often we grow up and we think, oh, when I was little, I liked that. That's over now. Role playing. Oh, I love role playing with my friends. But that was then. And the records will bring it right up and go, let's talk about what you loved about role playing. And then the energy and the remembering happens. And then all of a sudden, the energy of role playing can play right into being a CEO, being a speaker, being an actor. It's like, yeah, and then what will happen, it happens all the time. The person will go, you know what? I was thinking a while ago that I wanted to be a whatever. And the records will go, let's talk about that more. Right. And so then it's like, can you revisit that? Can you have it? And the records will say, you already do. There's nothing you have to go get. But that's kind of how it unfolds.
Kind of reinforces their inklings or their sort of cosmic nudge, I like to call it. And
Yes.
you open that door for them. I think they already know that, but they need permission. But they need to give themselves permission, or they need some assurance, or maybe they're codependent. Some of the big stars I met in Hollywood were extremely introverted people, and yet I saw them on stage with command of the stage. I'm not going to say names, but when I met them in person, they were humbled and introverted type people, but give them that stage and they became this giant image and personality. So I think when you help people, just take that doubt away a little bit, I think they know what they want to do, and they come to you and they say, "How can I do it?" And you give them the steps. I think you take away the blocks. Would you think so?
Yeah, and they wind up taking away the blocks.
Well,
That's what's so beautiful because they'll say, "Oh, Mary, you're so wonderful. You did this, you did that." And I always, because I'm in the records, my ego is not there. It's part of my sacred prayer that I say to open the records, is that I say to them, "Well, thank yourself. Pat yourself on the back because you just came to this from your higher self, showing itself, mirroring to you, because that's what the records do. They mirror to us who we already are." And you know what, you just triggered something for me, Douglas, when you talked about the actors being very shy and whatever. That is very, you see a lot of that with actors. When I was in grammar school, I wouldn't speak. I would not speak. And I used to get honors. I did well in school. I loved school, but I was afraid to speak. And I think it was the bullying
hmm
that got me in that place. And so I remembered that when the report cards would be sent to my parents, it was always, "Mary is lovely, Mary's," it was all positive, but it was like, "We wish you would speak." And now look at me.
And now look at you. You read my mind. I'm sure. But first go last, last go first. So there you were. What a
Right.
wonderful time. So the book again is called The Akashic Way. It's part memoir, part sacred transmission, shares direct messages from the divine for humanity, received through Mary's own records. The website is www.spirittherapybymary.com. And I'm assuming people, if they'd like to get a hold of you, they just email you,
Hmm.
a divinerealm@gmail.com. I believe I got that right. So,
Yes, and you can reach me through the website as well. There's a contact form there. Hmm.
well, Mary, it's wonderful talking with you like this all the time. We wish you well. I know you've been extremely successful in New York and all those awards, Emmy Awards and things you've received. But I guess what you're doing now is the most important work of your life.
Yes, yes, it is. And it is the most rewarding uh, work of my life. It just brings me, I expand every time I'm working in the records in my own or anybody's, or writing about them or sharing about them. I just expand more and more and more. And that's just so joyful and fun. It just feels great. And that's really how we're supposed to feel. That's that's our right. Our right is to be happy, not to be held down. I was made fun of when I was little as being pie in the sky. I remember this. I remember probably my parents saying, "You always think everybody's so good." And began to feel a little bit self-conscious about that. And I felt like maybe I'm wrong. Why do they keep making fun of me for thinking everyone is really love and light? And then when I when I grew up and came to, got again bumping into the walls, falling down, getting up, as we all do, life experience. But when I came to understand, it was when I really worked in the records, that is what life is about. That is the design from source itself. That our right is happiness, abundance, all of that joy, all the time. You have no idea how happy I was to find out, oh my gosh, I was right. I knew it.
Absolutely. Mary Madeiras
Hmm.
is an advanced Akashic Records practitioner, an Emmy Award-winning director whose spiritual work lies at the heart of her creative life. The book is called The Akashic Way, part memoir, part sacred transmission. So we wish you well, Mary. And the website again, if I remember it correctly, is www.spirittherapybymary.com. And the email is adivinerealm@gmail.com. It's wonderful to have you on the show. We'll have you on again, and may you have much success in your life.
Thank you, Douglas. I love being here and love what you do. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Okay, my friends, I trust you enjoyed the Soul Report tonight. I trust you enjoyed the conversation. I hope it touched your heart, opened your mind, or awakened your spirit. Please, do me a favor and take a moment to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter, at Douglas James Cottrell, and also at The Soul Report. Please share this episode with someone you care about and help us grow this global community of truth seekers and soul explorers. Remember, this podcast is a movement of consciousness, a call to awaken the divine within. Until next time, my friends, stay curious, stay connected, and keep listening to the voice of your soul. This is the Soul Report Live, and your journey is just beginning. I'm Dr. Douglas James Cottrell with my good friend Jack Balick and our lovely guest Mary Madeiras today, wishing you peace and prosperity. God bless.